And so now we have David going to the church or going to the temple to receive instruction. How many know that David would not have done very well if he was dependent on good feelings concerning Goliath, for instance? You know, my Uncle Sam, he was a Golden Glover in Montreal at boxing, heavyweight. He went a full 12 rounds. He says, by the time, he told us this a couple of years ago, he said, by the time I reached the 10th round and I looked at the other corner of the ring, I said, what in the world am I doing here? I mean, he was getting beat up. You know, you sometimes you're in battles that feelings will not carry you through.
Amen. That's right.
He didn't feel good about being. I don't think when he looked at Goliath and he felt really excited. I think he felt disappointed in Saul being a head and shoulder of everybody else and the whole army. But I think he understood the dilemma here. He understood that the threat of Goliath and the Philistines was a very serious matter. And it was going to cause the carnage of human life, the slaying of multiple tens of thousands of people. So he didn't stand there looking, trying to get happy in Jesus. When you're going through battles in life and you're threatened and your faith is being challenged, there is no good feeling to go on at that moment. How many understand what I'm saying? There's no, Jim, excited about this trial. I'm really excited about this testing, this hardship I'm going through. Praise God. No, the feeling's not there. Where feelings will abandon you, instruction will never abandon you.
Amen. That's right.
Amen.
Thank you, Brother Steve. Stay with me. I'm counting on you to be my amen corner. That one too far back there. Once in a while he throws out a real good one from back there. Good bomb and amen, bomb back there. But you be a second amen corner right here. Feelings won't help you get through your trials. Feelings won't even, watch now, help you worship. Feelings won't even help you pray. I'll tell you what, one of the hardest things to do is to discipline your life to prayer. You go into prayer and it's a challenge. Is that right? You're going to, if you purpose to kneel and to pray before God, it is a cross to carry. Now let me just go over those again, because once again we're living in a culture of a church culture in terms of Christendom in America, where it's all a feel-good church service. It's all about how good people feel. Come to the Lord to make you feel good. Jesus is he's not marketing in drugs to make you feel good.
Amen.
He's giving us instruction in righteousness. Now, when it comes to prayer and disciplining yourself, good feelings will not force you to pray. It will not bring it to your good feelings about prayer, won't bring it to your knees. Because prayer is a challenge to your flesh. It is a challenge to all that you are as a human being. Feelings won't help you when it comes to worship, but instructions will. If you follow your feelings, you won't pray. If you follow your feelings, you won't go to church. If you follow your feelings, you won't worship. If you follow your feelings, you won't give your tithe and offering. Huh?
Amen.
But in each case, if you follow the instruction of the Lord, you will pray. Somebody shout amen. If you follow instruction from the Lord, you will worship God in spirit and in truth. If you follow instruction from the Lord, you'll be able to take on the Goliath that is facing you today.
Amen.
Don't go by feelings. Go by instruction. When it comes time to pray, it's a matter of instruction that we receive from the Word of God. Pray without ceasing, Paul says.
Amen.
Right? Philippians chapter 4, verse 6, 7, and 8, he says, concerning your prayers and requests and petitions unto the Lord with thanksgiving, let there be known. This is instruction. It's not a feeling. When it comes to the trials of life and the testings of life, feelings will abandon you and forsake you. You won't feel very good because your environment is not conducive to victory.
Amen.
It's true?
Amen.
Sometimes you're surrounded by co-workers that are anything but godly.
Amen.
And you're faced with a challenge. You have no feelings there. Feelings, when they leave you, instructions will stay with you. And so, our congregation here has been instructed in righteousness and continues to be.
Hallelujah.
If we wanted to have 1,000 people, we could have had it 20 years ago. I know how to make that happen. I've done it before, and I could do it again if I wanted to. But I have zero interest in getting people here with the tom-toms and horses and pageantry and events and programs just to make them feel good and throw pizza at everybody. I'm not interested in that. I have no interest in it whatsoever. My interest is to present you to Christ, a faultless church, holy and acceptable unto God.
Amen.
A chaste virgin. That's my interest. And our church is not for just any Tom, Dick, and Harry coming down the pipe. Our church is only for those who are hungry for Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Who are hungry for God, who are hungry for instruction, and how to apply that instruction to life. Why do you think we have the kind of bulletin that we have? We have a bulletin that has the making of Bible leaders. What church you go to in the bulletin will show you how to become a Bible leader. How many know the making a Bible leader is an instruction in righteousness?
That's right.
It'll also give you insights for walking with God. That's instruction. Are you getting the picture? Every sermon you receive, whether from me or Pastor Stephen, everything that we share, everything that we partage, that is to share or fellowship with, it's got some instruction in righteousness connected to it. Because where feelings drop off, instruction will stay with you. And it'll guide you through to the end of that battle. So what did David do concerning Goliath? He looked at the odds. Goliath and the Philistine, Israel was outnumbered, outgunned, honey. I mean, they had arsenals out in the Philippines compared to what Israel had. And Saul was the biggest of them all. I'd love to see that. And must have been a bunch of pygmies out there after that. And David was the smallest one of all. He was just a puny kid. But here's watch now. I want you to really get this. Very important that you capture this. David goes to his brothers and said, what's going on? There's a standoff, you know. Why aren't you guys fighting it out? What'd you call for me? You know, what's the big deal? He was a lunch boy. He was a water boy. Yeah? What would you call him? What's going on? What's the standoff here? Oh, see that a big guy over there, bigger than anybody in the world. Did you notice that David said nothing until he heard Goliath threaten God's army?
Amen.
When he heard, when he heard Goliath breathe those threats to the Lord of armies, to the God of the armies, to the Lord of hosts. Lord of hosts, host means the Dieu des armées, which is the God of the armies. See, David was raised right. He was raised with the instruction of God. Feelings had nothing to do with his service to God. It all had to do with instruction. He knew that God was God, and God of Israel was the God of the armies of Israel. Now, Saul and the rest of the army, they may be faltering, they may be quivering, but when David was hearing the explanation why there's a standoff, while that's going on, he hears threats from this giant of the Philistine called Goliath, threatening the army of God. Something turned inside of David. It was not a feeling. Let God arise. Somebody help me tonight. Let God arise in his enemies. How come Saul didn't think of that? How come all the army, not one turkey out there, thought of that, but David did? Let God arise and his enemies be scattered. Something rose up in David and said, who do you think you are? You! How dare you threaten God's army? Who are you? And so David said, put me in, coach. This guy's going down. Can you imagine Saul while he's shaking and this little 5'2" eyes are blue? Sweet 16 and never been kissed. Sitting there trying on Saul's armor. There was nobody in the camp that could have armor to fit him. He said, gentlemen, by the instructions that I received, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. He said, that's that guy down there named Goliath? Yeah. I'm going to tell him to choose a spot where he's going down, because he's going down today. Choose a spot where you want to land. I'm going to tell him. See, David was going by instruction, not by feelings. Church services were not designed by God. First of all, the church services are designed by God, but not so designed for us to just feel good about ourselves. Amen. And to have spiritual fun. The time that we come together is to receive instruction in righteousness. Receive counsel from our elders. Because I promise you, your feel-good moments will dissipate, evaporate like steam coming out of a teapot in hot water. It'll evaporate. And when you need the emotional energy, drive to be able to conquer a challenge that day, you won't have that feeling. What will you have if you don't have instruction? I'm glad that when I was in grade 4 and 5, I learned math, M-A-T-H. I learned bath, too, on every Saturday night, all right? It was bath time. That's right, but you need it or not. Back in those days, we didn't have showers. My mother had to boil the water to put it in a tub. Thank God we had a tub. I learned math. Some people wonder, you know, if I go to the store and it's $8.82, I give them $10, $20, and bless that little cashier, can't figure out. I said, my change is $10.12. How do you know that? How do you know that so fast? And I said, well, went to school and I was instructed in math. Grade 5. Timetables will tell you the change. Right. Well, I've got my Texas Instrument here. I have to figure it out here. What about when your battery runs out? I don't know. Lack of instruction will keep people down every single day of the week. Amen. Will keep them in defeat and handcuffed. And will bring them to an inability to cope with life. And so Goliath is there. As he sees David picking up a few pebbles, he's got a little slingshot. See, Paul said, I know in whom I believed, and I'm persuaded. And there's no feeling attached to that. It's a spiritual matter. I know whom I have believed. I know him. And to know him is to love him. To love him is to serve him till I die. So David goes out there with his slingshot, the 5 little pebbles. And he's looking at God. I can just see David inside. Oh, shut up. And you know the story of Goliath. He said, what am I, a dog? You sent a little boy out here, that little water boy here to come here. Am I a dog here? And he yells that out to Saul across the way, across the divide. Oh, my dog, you sent a little, what's out, you people? Aren't you embarrassed? Not at all. That boy knows God. You better watch this little boy. God is with him. David walked in the instruction of the Lord. That's what made David David. He walked in the instruction of the Lord. He listened to his elders. He listened to the culture of the Bible. He obeyed the culture of faith. He was willing to learn the culture of faith from his ancestors, from his forefathers. He was willing to learn and to absorb and to apply to his life the instruction that's given by those who have walked with God until such a time when God deals with you personally. Follow instruction. Do what you're told. Listen to your elders. Follow their wisdom. If you think they're crazy and you're smarter than them, you may want to go to your knees and re-establish your relationship with God because you're completely out of line. Listen closely. So, at Goliath's insult, again he breathes these insults and these threats to Israel. And David had one thing to say. You come to me with spears and swords, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts.
Amen.
Goliath probably learned, what's this, Sunday school hour? This Sunday school hour, kid? What are you talking about? This Sunday school hour? What's going on here? What? Sunday school? What? You talking to me? I didn't just see Goliath. Hey, you talking to me? I can see David saying, shut up, you ignorant. You come to me with spirit, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts. One stone's on it too. Now let me tell you something. I don't think that David was that accurate with his slingshot. That's my opinion. Because with the armor that they had back then, Pastor Stephen, for you to find from here to that wall back there, that one little half-inch square, and even with that hard head, I don't think that pebble would have creased his skin. But you see, that stone went in the name of the Lord.
Amen.
And it's the name of the Lord that sought its target. And it's the name of the Lord that found its target. And it's the name of the Lord that caused Goliath to fall. Not that stone. Nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. It's not even in the velocity of that stone. The velocity, no matter how fast it would be, unless it's a bullet, would not pierce his head. But thrown from any man's arm, especially a small guy like this, there's no way it can happen. You understand what I'm saying tonight? What I'm saying is this. If you're trying to live your life on feelings about God, and feelings about your walk with God, they will leave you hanging dry and you'll be sorely disappointed. But when you live your life under instruction and righteousness and how to live through the instructions according to the book, live according to the instructions it's given to you, you're going to make it. And successfully so. But when Goliath went down, David wasn't satisfied. It's like a roach. Did you notice that? Have you ever had to kill one of those palmetto bugs in your house? And my wife does that. Someone sprays, and you see that guy. But did you notice that for every palmetto bug, that's not enough? Now that's enough. Now we pick up the leftovers and put them and flush them down the toilet. So when Goliath was down, so that's not enough. Where you sword that boy, pull that out. Goliath's head was chopped off. Instruction helped David do that, not feelings. Again, feelings won't bring you to your knees to pray with God, to pray to God. Feelings won't force you to worship God. Sometimes they do. But if you're dependent on your feelings to worship God, then you're on sandy ground, no solid ground whatsoever. If you attend church and give tithe and offering, everything that you do for the Lord, witness for Him, whatever you do, it has to be under the instruction of God. Because the Word of God, I come back to you what I said originally, is that all Scriptures inspired or expired, coming out of the mouth of God, the breath of God, my God, and is worthy to be received for instruction in righteousness. But again, how do you know that we have certain people sometimes that we meet up with that are unteachable? Not that they don't have the capacity to learn, but an attitude of arrogance prohibits them from learning instruction in righteousness. So that when the hardships come, they don't know what to do because they lack instruction in righteousness. So our church is different than other churches. I told you before, and I'll tell you again, I'll go on to my message tonight. I haven't started yet. As soon as I'm done here for another half a minute here, I'll get on to my message. Romans chapter 12. Okay, we'll get there in just a second. But once we have received the instruction, these instructions will give structure to life, your life. It'll give your life a solid base. Paul said, go back to Jesus. When Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, how was he able to overcome the temptation of Satan? What was his first response? It is written. Is that correct? Somebody help me tonight.
Yes.
Jesus, when he rebutted the tempter, Satan, he said, it is written. Does that tell you that maybe Jesus was instructed in things of God?
Amen.
I rest my case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. It is written, thou shalt not tempt the Lord your God. When he tempted him about changing the rocks to bread because he was hungry, he said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, by every word that comes out of the mouth of God. Brought him up to the pinnacle of the temple and showed him all these things. And commit, just to go ahead and die. He said, the angels will catch you. He said, you shall not tempt the Lord your God. It is written. Every time Satan tempted Jesus, it was Jesus' instruction in righteousness that brought him out.
Glory. Amen.
It's not because Jesus was feeling good after 40 days of not eating. After 40 days, probably would have had to be carried to the next station. You're weak at 40 days. After 40 days, day 41, you begin to starve to death. After 40 days, you can live. For day 41, you're now starving until you die. Jesus wasn't strong, but he was able to rebut Satan's temptation, no matter what his condition was. Not because he had a feel-good experience with Jesus or with God, But he was able to rebut the tempter by saying, it is written. That's because when Jesus was a little boy, he took instructions from his parents. Instructions in righteousness. At the age of 12 years old, when his life turned around to begin his ministry, at 12 years old, he was in the temple questioning and disputing the teachers of the day about his father's business. And the list goes on. Following instruction. I think it's more important right now to follow, more than ever, in every church in America. It's more important right now that we give in our people instruction in righteousness.
Amen.
Once again, and I'm on to my message right now. I have built churches and congregations up to 1,000 people. Been there. I've helped Sam do that and other ones. Up in the West Coast, been there, 1,200, 1,500 people in church. I was part of that program many, many years ago. And we could do that right here at Calvary Community Church. But I have no interest in providing for a simulation of Christianity, nor a cotton candy type of approach. We are not a feel-good church, although it feels good to be here.
Amen.
Right? How many feel good about being in church tonight? I feel terrific. There's no other place I'd rather be. But that's not what drew me tonight. Instruction drew me. Feelings followed. I want you to get a picture of a train. The caboose is the feeling. The engine is instruction. The caboose will follow the train. It's hooked to the engine. Cars in between. But it's going wherever instruction leads it. Somebody help me tonight. The caboose will follow the engine wherever the engine takes it. In other words, if the engine that drives your life is called instruction in righteousness, the feelings will be there right behind you. But don't put the caboose in the front trying to pull the engine and force the engine to comply to your feelings. That is the instruction. Don't let that happen. Romans chapter 12. Give the Lord a good clap offering tonight for His goodness and mercy. Romans chapter 12. And look at verse 1.